Good afternoon. I'm Jim Dever, President of Bank of America in Greater Philadelphia. As a lifelong resident, I have come to know the importance of entrepreneurs and small businesses to our regional economy. At Bank of America, we are very much committed to helping small businesses with resources to both sustain and help them grow. Recently, small businesses in Philadelphia have begun to regain their footing after a most challenging year. Last week, we released our 2021 Small Business Owners Report, which showed confidence on the rebound. Over 60% of small business owners are expecting a revenue increase over the next 12 months. While that is encouraging, the journey to full recovery will be a long one, and we will all need to work together. In addition to investing in small businesses, we are delivering on our $1.25 billion commitment to achieve and advance racial equality and injustice. Our key tenets in this area are focused on jobs, housing, and the support of small business. This effort further accelerates our work to create opportunities for people and communities of color through direct investment and collaboration and coordination with the private sector. This afternoon, I'm honored to share the virtual stage within a very impressive group of community leaders and business owners. I am sure that the discussion will be engaging and enlightening. It is now my pleasure to turn things over to Philadelphia Magazine's editor, Kate Daly. Thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. I am Kate Daly. I'm the editor at Philadelphia Magazine. I'm here today for a Secrets of the C-Suite, focusing on food, our relationship with food, the food industry. This conversation is brought to you by Bank of America. We want to thank them. We are really looking forward to this conversation today. In the past year, we heard a lot about food and our relationship to food, whether it was early conversations in the beginning of the pandemic about potential supply chain disruptions, or focusing on restaurants and how they were affected by shutdown. We also saw a lot of community building, helping our neighbors who had trouble accessing food, banding together to support our local eateries. So we brought together 3 local business people who are approaching food and how we think about food from really interesting perspectives. First, we have Jeff Brown, who is the CEO and president of Brown Superstores. We have Lisa Calvo, who's the owner of Sweet Amalia's Oysters, and Nicole Marquis, who is the founder and CEO of Hip City Veg. So welcome to all of my panelists. Thank you so much for being here. One of the things that I wanted to talk about, just to start us off, is where we are in this moment in time. From your perspective and from your industry, are we at the beginning of the end of the bad time, or are we at the beginning of good times? Should we be feeling optimistic, or is it still kind of a time of crisis and a time of reflection for your industry? So Nicole, can you start off?
Yeah, and thank you so much again for having me. This is an honor to be next to Lisa and Jeff. How are you guys? So great. I think it's maybe right in between. I'm an internal optimist, so I see a lot of opportunity for the rest of the year and moving forward into 2022. Our business in many ways was completely disrupted, and we had to act quickly to figure out how to adjust to the challenges that were in front of us. So I think that in many ways, because of the pandemic, we're actually stronger of a company than we were before the pandemic. But at the same time, this was a very long, dark tunnel, and we're finally seeing the light. We had 2 rounds of layoffs in 2020, and that in many ways was traumatic for our employees. It was definitely a shock to us, and felt like some days, what's next? What's the next challenge, But I think the silver lining is that the team got stronger. Our bonds are cemented. It really was like we were in battle together. And we made it out, and in some ways we thrived. The way we gave back to the community, the way that we reacted to the social events that were happening was what I'm really proud of. So, now that we're on the other side of it, we're looking at growth again. I was joking with the team, I went to sleep like yesterday in crisis mode. I woke up today and I'm in growth mode again. So it's the newest challenge, but we're up to the task and excited for the future.
Jeff, how about you? How are you feeling about the months ahead?
Well, if I could just give a little historical perspective, a long time ago, there really weren't such a thing as restaurants. Everyone bought all their food in grocery stores. And for the last probably 70 years, 80 years, the industry ended up split, where maybe a little more dollars went to food and restaurants than in retail. And what happened when the pandemic hit, all the restaurants were forced to close. And that means we had to sell all the food. And we don't have the capacity to do that. And our manufacturers you make it differently if you make food for a restaurant versus a grocery store. And so it was a topsy-turvy year. And of course, the CDC didn't have much direction in the very beginning. And we had to figure out how to keep people safe without, government direction. And, looking back, it was a crazy time that we got through. And, we're at the end of that now, and things are somewhat returning to normal, which is, businesses going back to restaurants. And that's, that is good in a lot of ways. And our industry is back to what we were facing pre-pandemic, which is bricks and mortar is sort of stagnant, and online is growing very rapidly, crazy rapidly during the pandemic. And, we had to keep up with the fact that a lot of our customers were scared to leave their house and wanted to buy everything online. We'd always been in the online business, but not that amount of online. And so, it was a year of scrambling to open up new capacity to handle the online business. And I think that's going to be around for quite a while. The other thing is keeping people safe is so top of mind. It used to be that people didn't care, the Board of Health cared. And now the people care more than the Board of Health. And their standards and what they expect is much higher than what the law is or the regulations are. And so a lot of things we used to do, like open hot bars or open salad bars or open food sales, consumers really don't feel that comfortable with that anymore. And so we're in the process of adjusting our retail experience to be fun and exciting, but to take into consideration that people don't feel comfortable with the way we used to do business.
Jeff is coming to us from the world of grocery stores. Nicole is coming to us as a restaurant owner. I think we'll talk more in this conversation about how some of those lines are blurring, and Jeff, you already addressed that a bit. Lisa, you kind of have your feet in both worlds. Can you talk a little bit about how this past year sort of changed what your business model was and how you're feeling about the months to come?
Sure, Kate. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here with Nicole and Jeff. It's been a topsy-turvy year for sure. I'm a producer of oysters in southern New Jersey, and my business model had always been direct marketing to restaurants. So when the restaurants closed last spring, it was my market 100%. So, it was like so many businesses, just a year of pivots and trying to figure out a new direction and a new way. We rapidly tried to create retail sales, and that was a little bit challenging because we really didn't know all of our consumers, because they would eat our oysters at restaurants. So there was a disconnect. We had really close ties with our restaurants, but beyond that, the consumers, we would hear about kind of remotely. So it was really building those relationships with direct consumer sales. And there was a lot of opportunity for that as individuals began to seek local food sources and look to local markets and local producers. And at the same time, there was just this community building effort and networking among small producers and retailers that focused on foods from local farms and such. So it was really kind of an exciting time to pivot and figure things out and connect with individuals who had been enjoying our oysters, but now we're learning how to prepare and eat them at home. So there's a big education piece. There was a big outreach piece. And for a while, we were delivering oysters direct to door from farm to door. So that really helped us bridge a bit of that gap in terms of sales. And we stayed with our restaurants, and they were very supportive through the entire pandemic, still purchasing oysters when they could, supporting us, allowing us to set up tables outside their restaurants to sell direct to customers. And even helping us produce videos on how to shuck oysters that we could host on our website. So I was really very fortunate to have a strong community to help us through this. And I think moving ahead, I'm very optimistic. There seems to be tremendous demand for oysters right now. I think we broke a lot of barriers with people feeling more comfortable about having oysters at home and learning how to prepare them, shuck them, and bake them or whatever. And we are enhancing our retail opportunity with the opening of our own market and kitchen. So now we're a little bit more, have a diverse business model and more vertically integrated. So we're looking to return with strong sales to our restaurants and enhance those sales with direct to consumer market.
Yeah. Lisa, I think yours is such a good example of just the different ways we all had to pivot and scramble and do some triage. And Nicole, I'm wondering if you can tell me a little bit about some of the changes that you guys made in the past year out of necessity, that you think are going to stick around even after the pandemic is over.
Yeah, absolutely. For our own business, we had to get creative really fast to try to bring in some sales with everyone on lockdown. And we learned that what we can do is almost limitless when we know it's a matter of survival. And our whole remaining team at the time was all in on finding solutions. Not everything we did worked, but a lot of what we did, really got us through the hardest year of my professional life. So, we worked like mad to effectively build online and delivery sales, which had been practically non-existent before the shutdown, and for our full service brands. And for Hip City Veg, we went from 1 delivery partner to 4. We almost immediately launched curbside pickup so that people would feel more comfortable getting their food. And we offered family meals, and for a lot of families that were sheltering in place together. So we really learned that Uber convenience is where it's at, and will continue to be now that people's habits have changed. Another thing that I think led to our success was, while others were pulling back, we invested more heavily than ever in marketing and technology to really adapt quickly to the new reality. So now we know more than ever that we need to figure out where our customers are and meet them there. And at the time, it was in their homes. They weren't walking by our busy center city stores anymore. Another thing, at our full service restaurants, we revamped the menus so that they were better suited for takeout. Because, at Charlie Was the Sinner, these are cocktails that we're lighting on fire, or food that we're preparing with tweezers. So it wasn't suited for takeout. So we had to change completely. We launched also a warm-up cocktail menu with hot drinks and thermoses and fleece blankets to keep people warm outside in the dead of winter. And we sold out in 24 hours of blankets and had to rush order 10,000 more blankets. So that idea was one, that's really probably going to stick around. And what I learned is that during this time, I really had to allow my team to try new things and take major risks because some of them will be hugely successful. And then I think the last thing that we did that I'm proudest of is how we managed to give back to those who were worse off than we were. We worked really hard to feed the community and to date have delivered over 10,000 meals to those affected most heavily by the pandemic. First to healthcare workers on the front lines with an NBA star, Shake Milton. And then we launched Support and Feed with Billie Eilish's mother, Maggie Baird. And we delivered thousands and thousands of meals to families in need in our community. So I think doing for others also really gives your team a sense of purpose and helps us remember that we're all connected. I think that's one thing that really lifted us through the pandemic.
Great. Jeff, you and your stores have a long history of innovation, of working with the community to find the best solutions. You mentioned that, on an industry level, online sales have really taken off and moved far ahead. But locally and within your shops, what kind of innovations did you put in place this last year? What kind of breakthroughs did you have that you think will stick around, well into the future?
Well, one of the things we were forced to do, we didn't necessarily want to do in our brand, the ShopRite brand, we have an incredible variety. At some of the stores, as many as 60, 70, or 80,000 items. And what we found the manufacturer had done, because they just couldn't produce enough product for the grocery channel, they were taking their top item and saying, that's all I have the capacity to produce. And all my other flavors and sizes, I'm going to stop producing. So I do think there's a little bit of the less is more and a simplicity of the variety, which I didn't hear any complaints about, because I think in some cases there were too much. It's confusing. The second thing is we were very concerned about a number of societal things that ended up being business opportunities. And so one thing is, we also had the unrest. And so it's a pandemic, and especially where my stores are, we had 2 stores badly damaged in the unrest that displaced people and gave them no place to buy food. So it was a weird situation. Our stores got destroyed, but we wanted to make sure our customers could eat. And so we ended up feeding them during the time our stores were out of commission anyway for free, just so they could get food. And the other thing we noticed is that a lot of the small businesses in Philadelphia looked like they were in danger of going out of business. And so some colleagues and I started the PA 30-Day Fund, and we raised $3.5 million. And we funded, I think, close to 1,100 businesses, especially women-owned businesses, businesses of color, to try to keep communities alive. Like, what would it be like if we're the only business left, And so we didn't want that to happen. And, in the process of doing that, in the evenings, I would call the businesses, to see if I could help them in any other way. And about 60 of them said, we'd love to do business with you. You could operate, we can't. We'd love to sell our products in your store. And we really developed some interesting partnerships with that, especially with restaurants. We have a number of interesting restaurant concepts with small local businesses and some innovative products. And also a lot of minority and female-owned businesses. And, I think a lot of the consumers, they want to do good and they don't know how. And so I think as a retailer, figuring out a way that we could help them feel good about their purchases and do some good in the world really is a business proposition, besides being the right thing to do. And I think that's going well. And we continue to search for interesting, innovative food and non-food items that we can partner with and bring to our stores for our customers.
Lisa, you know, you mentioned that you had some interesting partnerships, that there was a real community spirit around your shop and your oysters. And I'm wondering, you know, what did this year teach you about your customers and about, you know, their relationship with your product that you're going to take with you going forward?
Yeah, I think, I have a really wonderful customer base, and, so many people reached out and were, asking, how are you doing? Are you surviving? And, people even offering to come and help on the farm. So it was really important to have that community and that network. And I think in Philadelphia, there were some tremendous groups that supported small businesses, the Sisterly Love Market program. I worked with Primal Supply with their distribution. They were able to, very rapidly develop an online ordering program and direct delivery. So feeding into those opportunities and just, working with other farms who had CSAs and wanted to expand the product they could offer their customers. It was, really the entire year I feel like was about community building. And, I think if we look for a bright spot of the whole pandemic, it was really about people pulling together and supporting one another and helping everyone get through this.
Nicole, one of the things you mentioned earlier is that your staff it had been a rough year. It was a rough year, I'm sure, for you as a manager and an owner, but also a really difficult year for your staff. And we're hearing a lot about, employees who are working in customer facing industries. It was just, the essential workers. It was a really stressful time for them, aside from all of the turmoil about layoffs. There were just broader issues of safety, as Jeff mentioned. So as a manager, what are you doing now to help your staff kind of process these events and to move forward and to feel secure?
That's a great question, because that's really where we are right now, especially with the announcements of everything opening back up. Some of our employees are still nervous about having people sit at the bar and be that close and being in a really crowded restaurant. And we've done a few things. I think early on, when the pandemic first hit, we created Save Philly Restaurants Coalition, which is it's an ad hoc coalition made up of about 300 restaurants. And it was in response to the pandemic, and we fought to really advocate for restaurants and restaurant workers' needs at the time. So we were at countless hearings, both, local, state, federal, government levels. We wrote petitions. It was like a second job for us because there was so much need at the time. And in the beginning of this year, in 2021, we realized that our employees want access to a vaccine, like so many people, but it was very difficult. A lot of our employees were hesitant or confused about the process. They also don't have the luxury to, sit behind a computer. They're on their feet working in the restaurants. So they're not like waiting to see if a link comes through or researching where to get the vaccine. So we launched Save Philly Restaurants Vaccine Clinic in partnership with Centennial Pharmacy for all of Philadelphia's restaurant workers. And that was really helpful because they knew, okay, we're in this together. A lot of their questions about the vaccine were answered. And we went there. In one day, we went there, 1,000 of us went to the clinic and got a vaccine. And then people were talking about it within the restaurants, which really helped. So we just wanted to make that easy for them. I can't, say it enough how much internal communication helps company culture. So for us, we immediately started when the pandemic first hit, leadership calls daily with all of our managers in the enterprise. Now we've kept that. We're doing it 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Every single manager in the entire company is on a Zoom call together. And we're talking about, employee needs, what the restaurant needs, and how to move forward now that it looks like we're opening back up. So communication's key. And, we're going to celebrate, for example, our cocktail lounge. We're going to celebrate our 7th year anniversary of being open. Part of that celebration is because we made it through the pandemic, it's 7 years, but also we want to sort of change our mindset from this being in fear, right? Because a lot of our employees had a lot of fear working in the restaurants during this time. And it was scary, and we're elbow to elbow working so close. There were a lot of concerns. And through that, we communicated daily with every employee. So now we're going to celebrate and hopefully change the mindset. Okay, now it's time, for a new path. And we're going to talk about safety and continue to communicate. For us, it's really been about, when we think we're communicating, we have to over communicate. And that's when we really can deliver a message thoroughly to our teams. And they really deserve it, because there's just so much noise out there, right? That can make them anxious. So that's what we're doing on a regular basis, is meeting with our teams.
Yeah, that's right. Jeff, I saw you nodding along to that as well. And I think when we think back to the pandemic, a lot of the sort of symbolic, the way that we were taking a temperature of the tensions of the nation were through these videos taken at grocery stores where someone didn't wear a mask, and, a grocery store employee had to enforce it, and it often escalated. And so I'm wondering, what your approach was to keeping your staff safe and to helping negotiate, wanting, to provide good customer service, while also recognizing that, you didn't hire people to be bouncers. How did you thread that needle of making sure that your, the grocery store workers felt safe and felt like you had their back?
Yes. So the first thing, when it first hit, we didn't have any confidence in the government's direction. We thought that they didn't know what they were doing. And we checked with our colleagues in Asia and Europe to find out what they were doing. And so the CDC was telling us, don't wear masks, wash your hands. And Asia and Italy, where they got hit very hard, told me the only thing that stops the spread's a mask. So contradictory advice. But common sense, and we're grocers, so we use common sense. It made sense to us that masks would slow up the spread. And so we had acquired a large number of masks very early on from China. And we had our people in masks when the CDC told us not to, because we thought they were crazy. And very quickly, we started selling them to our customers too. And we were customers and employees all in masks before CDC finally changed their mind. And we were literally making changes every day. Like ShopRite has an officers meeting normally once a month. We had officers meetings 4 or 5 times a week, because as soon as we heard about an innovation to improve safety, we implemented it. Like in all customer service areas, shields everywhere. We were the first retailers to put shields because it made sense to us. It would limit the transmission of fluids between people. And we also realized social distancing can't be done in a busy store. So we started metering people and keeping track of how many people were in the store. And we had the unfortunate job of telling people they can't come in when we have too many people. And we did get yelled at for the masks and for that. And, to your question, we just really felt scientifically that this idea that you'd be better off without a mask was just wrong, that it was just not smart. And we decided at the end of the day, people would be mad at us when we told them they couldn't come in, but they'll be happy later when they weren't sick. And we were just going to suck it up. And we did fight with people. In some cases, we had to call the police to have customers escorted. But what lays in my hand is the safety of my 23 or 2,400 employees. And I have, in Philadelphia alone, we have 175,000 families that get their groceries from us. And there was no way we were going to let a few people stop us from keeping people safe. And here we are, 13, 14 months later, and 2.5% of my workforce got COVID, which is a small fraction of the general population. And we serve people 19 hours a day for all those months with very few infections or spread. And so I think we have a lot to be proud of. We also paid our employees hazard pay. We did it right away. We told our employees that have health problems not to work, and we'll take care of them because we knew that they were at risk. And people that didn't feel comfortable working, we gave them a leave of absence. They could use their vacation pay and stuff, or they could just take a leave of absence until they felt comfortable. And once everyone saw that we were keeping people safe, most of them came back, and we've kept our original workforce through this whole thing. And so now the challenge is that CDC is now telling us to take the masks off again. And half the people have been vaccinated, but half haven't. And so we don't really feel comfortable with that advice. And so it's something that we're wrestling with now.
Yeah, it's tricky. And as you said, there is guidance, but it's, government guidance, but at the end of the day, it all kind of falls on you. And that's something tricky to navigate. Lisa, this size and scope of your business looks very different from Jeff's. It is a small business. I don't think you have 23,000 employees. You are, outdoors much of the time. You are located, in a rural part of New Jersey. So what were some of your considerations as a small business owner this year about how you thought about your staff and how you thought about keeping safe?
Yeah, even for small businesses, I mean, you wanted your people to stay safe and be safe. For us, we were fortunate we were able to work outdoors and even social distance outdoors. But it was a struggle because I have a very small staff, and a couple of my staff have young children, so they were not able to work a schedule around tides with schooling of their young children. So we just had to support them and keep them on the books and pay them through that time and manage around it. We actually brought additional people in, and for us, it was much easier to navigate because we were mostly outdoors, and our packing could be done with 2 people, socially distanced and wearing masks. So that was it's not an issue on our end.
Now that things are opening up again, we're hearing stories about employers who want to hire and are having trouble finding workers, especially at restaurants, especially at grocery stores, and some of these industries that you all represent. And I'm wondering, there are different theories. Some people are saying, well, the stimulus was too generous. Some people are saying post-pandemic, workers are reevaluating what they want from their work life and what they're willing to put up with and what they're not. Nicole, I know you've done some really thoughtful work around trying to make your company a place that attracts workers. So I'm wondering if you can sort of talk about what you've done to attract and retain talent, and if you are seeing this labor shortage in your day-to-day.
Yeah, absolutely. Hiring is definitely one of our biggest challenges industry-wide right now. It's been a year of challenges, and this is the most recent one. Again, we had 2 rounds of shutdowns in restaurants. So we had to say goodbye to some of our beloved staff members twice in 2020. And so I think it's really a mixed bag why some employees have either decided to leave the city altogether, move back with family. When the shutdown first hit, a lot of employees couldn't even afford to live in the city anymore and moved with family. We had single moms who didn't have reliable childcare and couldn't come to work. And other employees who said, I need a stable career. I'm going to go to Amazon where I know they're not going to have another shutdown. And so in some ways, it's really about rebuilding the industry altogether. After this really long year, we just decided at Hip City Veg that it was really the right time for us to make a move with the company. And we launched 15 for our families, which is our commitment at Hip City Veg and all of Marquis & Co restaurants to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour for all of our employees. And this will affect about 100 of our employees. And we're doing it this year, starting July 1st. So it's a really exciting time for us. It really is our way to commit with our actions and show our employees how much we really value them.
Yeah, that's great. Jeff, how about you? What are you seeing in the grocery space, and what are your thoughts around, a labor shortage, or how your employees are viewing work?
Well, we're a unionized business, and because we're unionized and been around a long time, our overall pay is on the higher end of grocery work. And so I think that helps us to some degree. The second thing that helps us is we really are an open employer. And we're well known for our efforts to hire returning citizens. I want to say we have about 500 returning citizens working for us in Philadelphia area today.
And when you say returning citizens, you're referring to formerly incarcerated individuals, yeah? Okay.
Formerly incarcerated, some cases still incarcerated, and we're training them, and that's part of their release. And we've really opened ourselves up to every culture and religion, and really have built relationships and communities, and that's been helpful. But the truth of the matter is that the government told people you could die if you leave your house. And some people are so anxious to get out, they felt trapped, and other people are still afraid. And they're really they're afraid to leave their house. And that takes people out of the labor market. And normally what would happen, for money reasons, they would do it anyway because they got to pay their bills. But the extra unemployment is really just enough extra to leave a large amount of workers on the sidelines temporarily. I think the combination of the fear and the unemployment and the stimulus to some extent have kept enough workers on the sideline to leave a shortage. So I think it's less that people don't want to, let's say, be a restaurant worker or a grocery worker, more that they're afraid. They're afraid, and they have a way to delay the decision. And I think, as the unemployment office starts to bug people about going back to work and the extra $300 go away, I do think we're going to reach a point where we will have a flood of workers coming back and not enough jobs for them. Mm-hmm. So I think we're in a timing situation where we're just suffering through a transition, and hopefully the economy comes back strong enough that we don't have a lot of unemployment. But that's what I believe will happen. It'll be really hard on the employers, and then it'll be really hard on the workers. So if I were a worker and hesitant, I would come back soon, because I think if you wait till the last minute, there's not going to be enough jobs available.
Yeah. Lisa, what are you seeing in your space? I don't know how much you're dealing with seasonal workers. I don't know if the labor shortage has hit your business as well, but I'm curious as to your take on this.
Yeah, I've been fortunate in recruiting new members. Typically each year I have about 10 different individuals working part-time through the summer season and into the fall. And it was interesting this year because I did have a lot of interest from a very diverse suite of applicants, including a lot of people from hospitality, from restaurants, who were just looking to try something different and find a space where they could try something new and I guess take some time out until the restaurant world returned and was stable again. So I embrace that, and it's really been fun and interesting to have kind of this more diverse suite of employees. Some people come from marine science, some people are from food backgrounds, and I think the key is remaining flexible and making sure that we can support the part-time workers, the single moms who need to be home with their kids, and just have enough depth so that I can work around that kind of schedule. And I see hiring signs all around me in southern New Jersey. So I think the labor issue is significant across all sectors.
Before we wrap up, Jeff, I just want to give you one chance to talk a little bit more about your work with returning citizens, because I know that you found a lot of success with it. I know it's something you're really proud of, and I think our audience would love, I would love to hear more about it. So I will speak for our audience, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about that program and how it works.
Sure. I mean, really, it started because a lot of my personal locations are in inner city locations that were former food deserts. And to learn about people, I started a process to have town hall meetings to find out what's going on and what I could do to help them. And, you know, a very articulate lady explained to me the challenge of formerly incarcerated people, how they can't get jobs. And a lot of the people I serve have that problem, and that they challenged me to think of a way to turn it around. And so we started out maybe almost 20 years ago, hiring a half a dozen, and we were surprised how successful they were. And the problems we thought we were going to have, we didn't have. And there were problems that we didn't think we'd have so we learned about it like you do anything new. And, you know, we grew it from 6 people to 500 people. And along almost 20 years, we've had an incredibly low number of problems, very little turnover. And we think we found a real gem of a strategy for employers, especially, you know, hospitality workers, farmers, grocery workers, industries where you need a little grit. And these are people that have had hard lives and are, you know, willing to work, able to work, you know, have a little grit. They're not going to let anything stand in their way. They don't want to go back to jail. They want to support their family. And so we had started a nonprofit operation, Uplift Workforce, and we started training people, you know, for other businesses. So we now have evidence or data that goes back 5 or 6 years with 500 trainees. And, you know, we have a 2% recidivism rate, which means of the 500 people we train, 2% got into trouble again, and 98% did not. And that's an incredible improvement over the current numbers in society, where 65, 70% of the people return to jail that have been incarcerated. So it really is about making a living. If you make a living and you can take care of your family, you don't commit crimes and you don't go back to jail. And I think it's such an opportunity, especially while there's a labor shortage, for every employer to push themselves a little and experiment with it like we did. And at this point, you know, obviously some of my other employees were nervous at first. At this point, the whole team is on a mission to help people, you know, get through this. And a lot of our employees, you know, are mentors to the new workers, you know, to show them the ropes. And it really has been something I'm proud of, and a joy to see. You know, a lot of them have become managers or specialists in high-paying jobs. They buy houses, they get married, they teach Little League, and they're just like the rest of us, you know, with a little bit of help.
That's wonderful. I think that's a really great note to end on. I'm going to go back to you each one more time. Just reintroduce yourself. Tell us where we can find you, whether it's on social media, whether it's a physical address, you know, if people want to find out more about what you're doing. And then if you have anything coming up in the summer you're really excited about and you want to tell our audience. So Nicole, why don't you go first?
Yeah, my name's Nicole Marquis. I'm the founder and CEO of Hip City Veg, and also full service restaurants, Bar Bonbon and Charlie Was a Sinner. We're all 100% plant-based restaurants here in Philadelphia and in Washington, DC. And I'm really excited about getting back on track with our growth expansion plan. It's really to fulfill our mission of delivering plant-based foods to people everywhere. So that's what I'm most excited about this year, in the next coming months.
Right. Nicole, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Lisa, how about you?
Yeah, hi, Lisa Calvo. I'm a marine scientist and owner, founder of Sweet Amalia Oyster Farm in Cape May, New Jersey. And I'm really excited about continuing our mission to produce the perfect oyster and share that oyster with the Philadelphia region. This spring, we just launched Market and Kitchen in Newfield, New Jersey, where we are retailing our oysters and also have a fabulous takeout restaurant there with outdoor seating. Working with Chef Melissa McGrath on that project. And It's just a great little stop on the way to the shore. We'll also be offering farm tours this summer, which is a great way to get your family out in nature, exploring the southern Delaware Bay and looking at a sustainably produced oyster farm. So looking forward to meeting more people this summer.
That's great. And Sweet Amelia and Lisa were also the subject of a beautiful photo essay in the April issue of Philadelphia Magazine. So if you want to see more beautiful shots of oysters and of the new farm stand, see if you can get your hands on one of those. And Lisa, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right. And then Jeff, you want to close us out?
Yeah, I'm very interested in the connection of business and society, and how I could use my platform of grocery stores to make progress for people. And we have loved the work we're doing with a lot of minority and women-owned businesses to get their food products in our stores or to get them restaurants in our stores. And as some of the projects are coming together and we're building, very interesting food experiences, I really get a kick of that. I personally mentor dozens of them now, including two 10-year-olds, 10-year-old boy and a 10-year-old girl, and both African American. And I get the sense that the American dream is live and well, and we could use someone to help us or teach people how to do it, how to experience it, how to realize the dream. And I have a lot of hope for our future. We just need to work on it.
That's great. That was Jeff Brown, the CEO and president of Brown Superstores. I want to thank all of our panelists for being here today. I want to thank our sponsor, Bank of America. I'm Kate Daly. I'm the editor of Philadelphia Magazine. And so thanks to all of you for tuning in and watching as well.